touched here. The clauses in the Constitution that have excluded religious groups, for example, like the Muslim Brotherhood, for standing for election under their own banners, those haven't been touched at all. So some of the largest, most divisive issues in Egyptian politics have not been dealt with. They're perhaps, as some would suggest to me tonight, too hot to handle.
Anita McNaught live in Cairo for us. Thank you for that. Gunmen have attacked Iraq's biggest oil refinery, killing at least 2 workers and sparking a massive fire, which has shut down the plant. It's part of the Baiji complex, about 250 kilometres north of Baghdad. The gunmen infiltrated the refinery in the middle of the night. They opened fire, then fled before detonating the devices. Jane Araf with more details from Baghdad.
This was a serious breach of security at one of Iraq's biggest oil installations. This time, it wasn't one of the pipelines or the oil fields, which is home to foreign investment. It's the biggest refinery in the country, the Baiji refinery north of Baghdad. According to officials there, gunmen infiltrated the facility at 4:30 this morning, spraying the place with gunfire after they left as they laid bombs in control rooms. Those bombs set off fires that have caused extensive damage to a large part of the refinery. One engineer was killed by smoke inhalation, another technician killed by gunfire as the gunmen went out shooting. He says they're assessing not only the damage to the refinery, but exactly how this security breach could have happened. The facility is protected by a unit attached to the Ministry of the Interior. He says they are trying to increase confidence among staff who are afraid to come back to work. But in the short term, it will lead to a shortage of gasoline, a shortage of kerosene, and certainly have an impact on the confidence of Iraqis that their government can keep these installations safe.
Engineers and officials in New Zealand say at least a third of the buildings in central Christchurch must be demolished and rebuilt after Tuesday's earthquake. 145 people are now known to have died, but more than 200 are still missing. Andrew Thomas reports on how Christchurch is coping.
What the earthquake didn't pull down, machines now razed to the ground. This was Brent Smith's bed and breakfast.
There's the saying, you don't know whether to laugh or cry. I mean, I haven't stopped shaking since they started, and it's just history, you know, it's history gone.
The house was 155 years old. It was gone in an hour and a half. This is just one of many hundreds of buildings that will have to be demolished over the next weeks and months. In the city centre, 1 in 3 buildings assessed so far has been found to be structurally unsound. The precariousness of so many buildings makes the work of the rescue and body recovery teams that much harder, as aftershocks continue to bring masonry down. In the suburbs, different problems. One, silt. When the quake hit, in a process called liquefaction, muddy water bubbled up through the ground. This is what it's left behind. Many suburbs still have no power nor water, so volunteers 30 kilometres from Christchurch have started a production line of hot food. A local helicopter company then flies in to pick it up.
As of yesterday, we flew in 12,000 kgs of hot food, hot meals into some of the poorest and hardest hit suburbs of Christchurch.
This is where the meals end up. When the residents of Burwood hear the rotor blades, they flock.
We had grilled cheese sandwiches on the barbecue the first night, so this is much better.
Because you can't store food with no refrigeration, it's, this is a good proper meal.
Streets can be cleaned, power will return, but buildings and people in Christchurch are gone forever. The city will never be what it was before. Andrew Thomas, AlJazeera, Christchurch.
A couple of stories out of Europe for you. In the next few hours, results are due out from historic elections in Ireland, and opinion polls do suggest the main ruling party is heading for its worst ever defeat. After 14 years in power, many voters blame Fianna Fáil for its mishandling of the economic crisis. It was the party that led the government, the government that that led Ireland through its boom years, which ended with a joint EU-IMF bailout. The opposition, Fine Gael, says it will try to renegotiate the terms of Ireland's debts. And the French Foreign Minister, Michel Alliot-Marie, says she's fully committed to her job, despite reports she's about to be sacked. Alliot-Marie has taken a public battering since going on holiday to Tunisia during the country's popular uprising. She flew there in a plane belonging to a businessman with alleged ties to the Assad President Ben Ali. We're half past the hour on Al Jazeera. These are the headlines. The Libyan capital braced for fresh violence, with residents reporting the Gaddafi regime is arming civilians to quash any dissent. These pictures show damage in the capital after the latest fighting. 7 people were killed on Friday when pro-Gaddafi militia opened fire on people rallying after Friday prayers. We're also getting reports of dozens severely wounded in western Libya after security forces opened fire there. New videos also emerged from the eastern city of Al-Bayda showing one of Muammar Gaddafi's palaces, parts of it destroyed during the unrest as protesters tried to take over the city and drive out the pro-Gaddafi forces. The palace had iron doors leading to underground tunnels which are said to extend for several kilometres. UN Security Council currently meeting to firm up a draft resolution for Libya calling for sanctions against Gaddafi and his government. During a UN meeting late on Friday, Libya's ambassador denounced Gaddafi, who 3 days earlier he'd called his friend. In an emotional speech, Mohammed Shalgham said he could not believe the violence the leader was inflicting on his own people. Other headlines for you. Yemen's president is facing growing pressure to resign, with some key tribal leaders announcing their support for the anti-government movement. They include members of the Hashid tribe, which is considered the country's most powerful. Its members hold several key government positions. And a prominent leader from Bahrain's Shia opposition has arrived home from exile. In his absence, Hassan Mushayma was being tried for allegedly plotting a coup. But Bahrain's foreign minister says he's now been given a royal pardon. Meanwhile, several government ministers in Bahrain say they have been sacked. In Egypt, the Judicial Committee changing the constitution has proposed cutting presidential terms to 4 years with a 2-term limit. The proposals will eventually be put to a national referendum. Meanwhile, Egypt's ruling military council has apologised after military police beat protesters during demonstrations in Cairo. It stressed it did not and would not issue orders to attack protesters. It's also ordered the immediate release of all those arrested on Friday night. And Iraq's largest oil refinery has been attacked by a team of gunmen who killed at least 2 workers. The plant is part of Baiji complex in northern Iraq. The gunmen infiltrated the refinery, opened fire and then fled before detonating the devices. Time now for Inside Story.
As Muammar Gaddafi stubbornly refuses to relent and violently cracks down on the thousands who protest his rule, and as some of those close to him continue to defect, how important is his remaining inner circle to his survival? Who exactly are they, and will they stick around? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Imran Garda. Speaking from Tripoli's old city ramparts, Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi promised to open weapons depots to arm all Libyan people and tribes to defend the nation against what he called saboteurs, those who have taken control of large parts of the country. Here's some of what he had to say.
The armed people, and when necessary, weapons depot will be opened for all the Libyans to be armed. All the tribe will be armed, so Libya will turn into a burning hell.
Well, strangely seeming to call all Libyans to fight all Libyans in the interests of all Libyans. Well, as Gaddafi clings to power, trying to quash the popular revolt, is he banking on the loyalty of his close circle? Among them, his sons and key security officials, including Abdullah al-Sanusi, the former head of military intelligence. He's thought to serve as chief of staff on security matters. Musa Kusa, foreign minister and former head of foreign intelligence. Brigadier Sayyid Mohammed Gaddafi Dam, Gaddafi's cousin, his brother Ahmed Gaddafi Dam, has recently defected. Well, closer to home, Gaddafi's sons have often been used to represent a more acceptable, modern face of the government over the years, like Saif al-Islam Gaddafi, whose doctoral thesis at the prestigious London School of Economics centred on democratisation. He can now be heard characterizing all the protesters as terrorists. Mu'tasim Gaddafi, he serves as National Security Advisor. There's also Saadi Gaddafi. He played football for Italian giants Juventus, a club his father still owns a 7.5% stake in, and he currently conducts countermeasures against protesters in eastern Libya. And then there's the youngest son, Khamis Gaddafi, who commands an elite squad of special forces dedicated to protect his dad. Well, to know more about Gaddafi's inner circle and to find out what comes next, let's join our three guests. In Paris, Nouri al-Mismari. He's the former head of Gaddafi's protocol. And also here in our Doha studio, Mahmoud al-Shamam. He's a Libyan writer and journalist. And in London, John Hamilton, analyst and director of cross-border information and a Libya analyst. Welcome to the program, all of you. Mahmoud al-Shamam, you saw some of those that we actually mentioned as part of his inner circle. Is there anybody else that we've missed out?
Not really. I think what we call them the men of the tent is around him, most of them. Ahmed Gaddafi them defect to Egypt, and a few others are either sick or away. And I think that at the end of it, those people have no choice but dying with him. Because I think they are, even some of them are hostages of the situation.
Nouri al-Mismari, do you agree that some of them might be hostages of the situation, that even if they wanted to defect, they couldn't?
Well, to be honest with you, I do agree of what I have heard now, but the only thing that some of them are just resigning lately because they have found out that there is no choice for them only to resign. Why they did not do it from the beginning, from the starting? But at the moment, they didn't know that it will be successful. And now, because it is the end of it, everybody is resigning. This is one. Number two, I don't believe that there are hostages. Either they are in prison or either they are already dead. The only ones are near of him, which I have seen from the speech of yesterday, they are no more nor less that they are really not inner circle, but they are his cousins. Thank you.
Now, I've read reports that since you defected, Muammar Gaddafi has come after your family members. Is that true?
Yeah, well, I don't want to speak too much about it because really, as you know, it's a very delicate case.